On November 1st, 1755, the Iberian Peninsula was struck with a powerful earthquake. The earthquake, which was followed by a devastating tsunami, brought about a significant destruction of Portuguese cities, most importantly the capital of the empire, Lisbon. The consequences of the earthquake were to be far-reaching. We will focus on the regional consequences of the earthquake on the Iberian Peninsula in the years immediately following the earthquake from the perspectives of economics and politics, and the broader impact of the event on the philosophy of the Age of Enlightenment in the 18th century Europe will provide the perspective of philosophy. It will be argued that the earthquake not only devastated the economic output of the Portuguese Empire, but also set the stage for Sebastião José de Carvalho Melo, the future first Marquis of Pombal, who was effectively the prime minister of the empire under the rule of King Joseph I, to distinguish himself politically and be named Secretary of State on the brink of the 7 Years' War. It further initiated heated discourse in the philosophy of the Age of Enlightenment, especially with regards to the role of human reason to explain nature and the problem of God's involvement in worldly affairs, specifically the problem of theodicy.
The political repercussions of the 1755 Lisbon earthquake were profound, catalyzing the emergence of Sebastião Melo, later titled the Marquis of Pombal, as a central figure in Portuguese governance. In the intermediate aftermath of the disaster, Pombal distinguished himself through swift and decisive leadership, earning the trust of the King Joseph I and assuming the role of Secretary of State. His political authority expanded considerably, positioning him as the effective head of government in the years that followed. Primary sources such as the Gazeta de Lisboa reflect the state's strategic handling of the crisis. As the only state-sanctioned publication in Portugal at the time, the Gazeta played a key role in shaping public perception. The issues published shortly after the earthquake emphasized the economic toll rather than the human loss, reflecting the priorities of the state and revealing a conscious effort to frame a disaster in the way that blustered governmental control and authority. This manipulation of media is critically examined in Araujo, Public Distress and Political Propaganda, which details how Pombal used both domestic and international communication channels to present the monarchy and his own leadership as competent and rational. The essay argues that Pombal's political ascent was not merely a consequence of administrative necessity, but also a calculated public relations campaign designed to consolidate his power and strengthen the absolutist state. Araujo's The Catastrophe and the Reconstruction further explores how Pombal directed post-earthquake rebuilding efforts. These projects were not only architectural but ideological, representing a shift toward centralization and state-directed modernization. His leadership marked a turning point in the history of Portuguese absolutism, as the disaster provided both the context and justification for reforms that might otherwise have faced resistance.
God, the churches have fallen. People are screaming. How do we survive this?
Not with prayers, with plans. We bury the dead, we feed the living, we rebuild this city. But this time, by my rules.
And who are you to speak so boldly to me?
I'm the man who bring order from chaos. Your crown is shaking. Let me hold the ground beneath it.
Economic damage is being assessed. His Majesty's government is responding with strength and clarity.
You are using my name, but ruling on your own.
History remembers action, not hesitation. Lisbon will rise because I will it.
I was burned, but with him I rise again, maybe stronger, maybe colder. The earthquake had immediate catastrophic effects on the economy of the Portuguese Empire, mainly caused by human and capital loss. Historical records and modern studies estimate that at least 13,000 buildings collapsed in Lisbon, rendering 2/3 of the city uninhabitable. With the tsunamis and fires following the earthquake, it is estimated that the death toll in Lisbon was between 20,000 to 30,000 people, while it ranges from 35 to 45,000 across Portugal. Consequently, in the midst of the recovery and reconstruction efforts, the economic output of the empire had taken a severe hit. The direct impact on the GDP of Portugal is estimated to be around 32 to 48%, meaning that from 1/3 to half of everything that was produced in the previous year in Portugal was gone. In regular times, modern economic theory teaches us that a fall in GDP usually comes with a slowing down in prices. However, that is not how it plays out with such big crises. In order to minimize the impact on economic output, the government had imposed price ceilings on basic agricultural products such as wheat, barley, and millet in 1755, causing a small decrease in their prices.
I am a baker in Lisbon. Luckily, my wife and kids survived the earthquake, but my bakery collapsed. I want to start anew and open a new bakery. At least the price of flour did not rise much. I hear the government imposes price ceilings. Maybe my costs won't go up too much.
However, as this was unsustainable, the ceilings were lifted in the following year, and the prices of these products soared 83%, 170%, and 89% respectively.
Cristiano Ronaldo.
This sucks!
Similarly, due to high demand, construction materials such as whitewash rose 55%. Due to immediate demand for labor during reconstruction, a similar spike in the wages of construction workers were seen. Anecdotal remarks from the day indicate that in the first days in Lisbon after the disaster, there was almost no carpenter to be found. Yet in the days following, everyone wanted to learn such jobs due to high demand, and even for high prices, no worker could be hired. Indeed, it is estimated that skilled workers have seen about a 33% increase in their wages in the summer of 1756. However, there was an upside to this catastrophe after all. Modern accounts argue that as the earthquake provided an opportunity for the Marquis of Pombal to shine, it also provided a chance for his government to bring in reforms and institutions and urban planning. In the end, the rebuilt empire had a more centralized government and an economy much more independent than Britain.
As buildings collapsed and thousands perished in the Lisbon earthquake of 1755, Enlightenment thinkers across Europe were shaken, not just by the physical destruction, but by the philosophical questions it raised. How could such immense suffering exist in a world governed by a just and benevolent God? Voltaire was among the first to respond. In his poem on the Lisbon disaster, he rejected the optimistic philosophy of Leibniz, which is the belief that this is the best of all possible worlds.
Come, you philosophers, who cry, all's well, and contemplate this ruin of a world.
With biting irony, he called on philosophers to face the horrific reality around them.
What crime, what sin had those young hearts conceived that lie, bleeding and torn, on mothers' breasts?
Through vivid imagery of mothers dying with their children, Voltaire exposed the cruelty of blind optimism. He argued that suffering could not be justified by faith or abstract reasoning, and instead demanded a more honest look at human pain. Rousseau, on the other hand, disagreed. In a letter to Voltaire, he argued that the tragedy was worsened not by divine injustice, but by human decision-making, poor urban planning, overcrowded housing, and social inequality.
Everything is good as it leaves the hand of the author of things. Everything degenerates in the hands of man.
He believed that nature alone was not to blame. It was society's disregard for risk and reason that turned a natural event into catastrophe. Later, in Emily, Rousseau would write that everything is good as it leaves the hands of nature, but becomes corrupted by human institutions, emphasizing the need for reform, not resignation. Meanwhile, in Königsberg, a young Immanuel Kant offered a different perspective. In his 1756 essay on the causes of earthquakes, he proposed a scientific explanation based on underground forces, distancing the event from theological interpretations.
We must not drive the origin of earthquakes from moral causes or see them as punishments for the sins of man. Instead, the study of nature must guide us.
For Kant, the earthquake marked a turning point. Rather than seeking moral causes, humanity should investigate the natural world through reason and observation. As Sven Erik Larsson's note, Kant's response helped him break from theodicy and contributed to a broader shift toward Enlightenment empiricism.
In conclusion, our sources illustrate that the earthquake was not merely a natural catastrophe, but also a political opportunity. The crisis served as a platform for Pombal's rise, allowing him to transform both Lisbon and the administrative structure of the Portuguese Empire. Through strategic media control and authoritative governance, he redefined the state's relationship with its people and its image abroad. The state was rebuilt with a stronger central government, and the economy of Portugal, after it recovered substantially, was much more independent from Britain compared to its pre-earthquake stage. Overall, the Portuguese economy suffered deeply in the years following the earthquake, but in the long run, the earthquake had provided an opportunity for reform. Finally, our three thinkers, Voltaire, Rousseau, and Kant, reveal how the Lisbon earthquake shook not only cities, but the very foundations of European thought. It was more than a natural disaster, it was a philosophical rupture, forcing the Enlightenment to confront suffering, responsibility, and the promise of reason.